In late 1942, American pilots arrived over Guadalcanal with the P-38 Lightning, faster, deadlier, a twin-engine marvel promising air superiority. On paper, they expected an easy victory, but within weeks, shock set in. Japanese Zero pilots like Saburo Sakai, flying machines 100 miles per hour slower, systematically outmaneuvered the new Lightnings, exposing American overconfidence and turning the Solomon Islands sky into a graveyard for high-tech optimism. How did these elite Japanese aviators dismantle America's airborne juggernaut? And what did U.S. crews learn from their first bitter defeats? The answers reveal why the early Pacific War became the proving ground for when Japanese pilots shocked American P-38 Lightning crews, starting with the battles no American expected to lose. Saburo Sakai scans the horizon above the Solomons, sunlight glinting off the canopy of his A6M0. For pilots like Sakai, the new American twin-engine fighters are nothing more than another test. The Zero's controls feel like an extension of his own hands, responsive, light, and precise, even at the edge of a stall. Every maneuver is muscle memory, drilled through years of relentless training that began long before the Pacific War. The Yokorin program, the crucible for Imperial Navy aviators, weeded out all but the most dedicated. Only a handful survived the full course. Those who did, like Sakai, learned to fly as if their lives depended on it, because they did. The patrols over the Solomon Islands in 1942 demand constant vigilance. Japanese pilots operate at the edge of their range, often outnumbered, but never outclassed in the cockpit. Sakai's logbooks fill with sorties: Rabaul to Guadalcanal, Buin to New Georgia. He and his comrades fly in tight Shotai formations, 3 aircraft moving as one. The system isn't just about discipline, it's about survival. When one pilot draws fire, the others close in, ready to strike at any enemy who dares to follow. Communication is silent, a flick of the wingtip or a shift in position, honed by months of flying together over the endless blue. In his memoirs, Sakai describes the first sightings of the P-38 Lightning. Strange, twin-boomed, fast at altitude, yet to his practiced eye, lacking in agility. He notes, they could dive and climb with speed, but in a turning fight, they were lost. The Zero's wing loading, just 22 pounds per square foot, allows it to pivot tightly, out-turning almost anything the Allies send up. American pilots, new to the theater, often try to match turns. The result is predictable. Sakai watches as Lightnings bleed speed and spiral down, unable to keep the Zero in sight. Confidence runs deep among the Japanese pilots. Years spent battling over China and the Pacific have shaped them into a brotherhood of hunters. The Zero's light frame, built for maneuverability, is unforgiving of mistakes, but rewards skill with unmatched performance. Sakai trusts his aircraft completely. He trusts his wingmen even more. The culture in the ready rooms at Rabaul is one of quiet pride. Victory is expected, not celebrated. The enemy may bring new machines, but the fundamentals remain unchanged: discipline, teamwork, and the willingness to press an attack until the job is done. Sakai's recollections are blunt. He respects the Americans for their bravery, but sees the same errors repeated. Too often, he writes, the enemy tries to fight the Zero on its terms. They come in fast, but they cannot stay with us in a turn. The Japanese pilots exploit every advantage: altitude, surprise, the element of teamwork. Sakai's patrols sweep the approaches to Guadalcanal, intercepting bombers, tangling with escorts, and always searching for the next challenge. For the men of the Imperial Navy, the Solomon sky is their proving ground. Every engagement is a test of mastery, and every victory reinforces the belief that skill, not machinery, decides who survives. By late 1942, Japanese pilots like Sakai have become the standard by which all others are measured. Their confidence is not arrogance. It is the product of a system that values precision, discipline, and relentless practice. As the Americans arrive with their new Lightnings, the Zero pilots prepare to teach another lesson in the art of air combat. For now, the sky belongs to them. Lockheed's P-38 Lightning arrived in the Pacific with numbers that turned heads. Twin Allison engines, each pushing more than 1,000 horsepower. 4.50 caliber machine guns, and a 20mm cannon, all clustered in the nose. No convergence, just a single, deadly stream. Maximum speed, over 400 miles per hour. Range, nearly 2,000 miles with drop tanks. On the ground at Hamilton Field, the Lightning looked like the future, sleek, menacing, unmistakable with its twin booms and tricycle landing gear. For American pilots, raised on tales of the Wildcat's struggle and the P-40's grit, the new fighter promised a clean break from the past. The Lightning would not just match the enemy, it would outfly, outshoot, and outlast him. In the ready rooms, pilots studied technical manuals that read like sales brochures. The P-38 could climb to 20,000 feet in 6 minutes. Its turbo superchargers kept power steady at altitude, where most Japanese fighters faded. The concentrated firepower meant a single burst could rip a Zero apart before it ever got close. Test flights back home had shown the Lightning could dive faster than anything in the Army Air Force's inventory. Maintenance crews marveled at the complexity: counter-rotating props, liquid-cooled engines, a cockpit bristling with switches and dials. To the men rotating in from training squadrons, the message was clear. The P-38 was not just another fighter, it was a weapon designed to dominate. That confidence spread fast. Letters home described the Lightning as a Jap killer. In officers' clubs from California to Townsville, pilots swapped stories about the first time they opened the throttles and felt the aircraft surge past 350 knots. The myth grew with each new delivery. Some called it the fork-tailed devil. Others saw it as insurance, a twin-engine lifeline in a theater where engine failure meant a long swim. The Lightning's stats made it easy to believe. On paper, no Japanese fighter could touch it, but the war in the Solomons didn't care about paper. The first missions out of Henderson Field exposed a reality that didn't match the marketing. Pilots accustomed to single-engine machines found the Lightning heavy on the controls at low speeds. The cockpit, cramped and hot, left little room for error. The aircraft's systems demanded constant attention: engine temperatures, turbo boost, intercooler doors. In the tropics, corrosion crept in everywhere. Mechanics worked around the clock to keep the complex machines running, often cannibalizing parts from damaged airframes just to launch a single flight. The first radio calls from combat crackled with confusion. Pilots reported Zeros turning inside them, vanishing from gun sights as the Lightning bled speed in a hard bank. The nose-mounted guns, so accurate in theory, required a steady hand and a perfect angle, luxuries rarely found in a swirling dogfight over the slot. Some pilots, trained to close in and finish the job, found themselves holding the trigger too long, burning through ammunition in seconds. Others discovered that the Lightning's dive, once a point of pride, could turn treacherous above 400 miles per hour, with controls stiffening and the nose tucking under. The numbers in the manual offered little comfort when the sky filled with tracers and the enemy refused to play by the rules. The American pilot persona, shaped by months of technical briefings and stateside optimism, collided with the realities of Guadalcanal. Overconfidence faded fast. The Lightning was still a formidable machine, fast, powerful, lethal in the right hands. But the enemy was not a paper target. Japanese pilots, seasoned by years of combat, understood energy fighting and formation discipline in ways that no training syllabus could teach. The myth of technological invincibility cracked, replaced by the sobering knowledge that survival depended on more than horsepower and guns. In the end, the Lightning would have to earn its reputation the hard way, one sortie at a time against an enemy who refused to be impressed by numbers. Wing loading defines the battlefield before a shot is fired. The P-38 Lightning, at 53.4 pounds per square foot, enters the fight carrying more than double the weight per wing area of the Zero. The A6M2's figure, just 22 pounds per square foot, sets the stage for everything that follows. In the Solomon Islands, this single number translates to a turning radius the Americans can't match. The Zero's broad wings and featherweight frame let it carve through the air at low speeds, pivoting almost in place while the Lightning bleeds energy and altitude trying to keep up. Test pilots at San Diego, working with the captured Akutan Zero, measured a sustained turn rate of nearly 20 degrees per second. The P-38's best was far lower. At 10,000 feet, the Lightning's corner velocity, its minimum speed for maximum G, sits at 290 miles per hour. The Zero reaches similar loads at much lower speeds, keeping its nose up and its lift constant even as the fight spirals down. In a horizontal engagement, the outcome is written in the blueprints. The Zero's controls remain responsive near stall, while the Lightning's heavy ailerons and high-loading forced pilots to muscle the stick just to stay in the fight. The result? American pilots lose sight of their quarry as the Japanese aircraft slips inside their turn, then vanishes beneath the nose. The difference isn't just academic. In the first dogfights over the slot, P-38s try to match the Zero's circle. Instead, they find themselves out of position, low on speed, and exposed. Saburo Sakai and his wingmen exploit this every time. They know the Lightning's limits, when it will stall, when it will struggle to recover, and when it's safe to press the attack. Engineers at Lockheed had chased high-altitude speed and firepower, building a machine for interception and escort. But in the Pacific, the real contests happen below 20,000 feet, where raw horsepower can't overcome physics. American pilots, briefed on the Lightning's stats, expect to dominate. The reality is different. They watch as Zeros seem to pivot on a wingtip, using every square foot of lift to stay just out of reach. The numbers don't lie. At equal pilot skill, in a turning fight, the Zero dictates the geometry. Until tactics change, the P-38 fights with a handicap built into its very structure: compressibility. The word barely registers for most pilots in 1942, but Lockheed's engineers know it all too well. At the factory in Burbank, Kelly Johnson paces the hangar floor, reading flight test reports that hint at something new, something dangerous. The P-38's twin Allison engines can push the Lightning past 400 miles per hour in a dive, but at those speeds, the air itself changes. Shockwaves form along the wings and tail. The controls stiffen, then freeze. Pilots call it control lock. The nose tucks hard, and the tail begins to buffet. Violent, unpredictable, and impossible to counter with muscle alone. At Mach 0.68, the Lightning is trapped in physics no one fully understands. Johnson's notes from the test program are blunt. In November 1941, test pilot Ralph Verdon is lost when his P-38 enters a high-speed dive and never pulls out. The accident report describes the tail shaking so violently that the elevator snaps. Johnson writes, "I broke an ulcer over compressibility on the P-38 because we flew into a speed range where no one had ever been before." The engineering team tries everything, changing trim tabs, adjusting elevator balance, even experimenting with dive brakes. But in combat, there's no warning, just a sudden, sickening loss of control as the Lightning plunges toward the jungle below. In the Solomons, Japanese pilots sense the pattern. They watch Lightnings dive away at impossible speeds, then struggle to recover. Saburo Sakai and his wingmen learn to bait P-38s into steep descents, knowing that above 400 miles per hour, the American fighters become sluggish, unresponsive. In a turning fight, the Lightning is already at a disadvantage. But in the vertical, a Zero can sometimes follow, then pull up sharply as the P-38 barrels past, locked in a dive it can't escape. The Japanese don't need to outdive the Lightning, they just wait for the inevitable, the moment when the American pilot realizes he can't pull out and the sky becomes a trap. Lockheed's flight test data is clear. The safe dive limit sits just below 400 miles per hour indicated. Beyond that, the ailerons freeze, the elevator becomes dead weight, and the pilot has seconds to react. Some manage to recover by cutting power, rolling inverted, or using the trim wheel to force the nose up. Others aren't so lucky. Reports filter back from the field. Lightnings lost in unexplained crashes, pilots bailing out at the last possible moment. The engineers scramble for solutions, but the first operational dive flaps won't reach the Pacific until late 1944. For now, Lightning pilots must learn the hard way. Speed is both ally and enemy, and the sky above the slot is unforgiving. The compressibility trap isn't just a technical footnote, it's a tactical reality. American crews adjust, briefing each new arrival on the dangers of high-speed dives. "Don't chase a Zero past 350 knots, the veterans warn. If you feel the stick go heavy, get out now." But in the chaos of combat, theory falls away. A P-38 plunges after a fleeing Zero, the controls go stiff, and the jungle canopy rushes up. On the ground, mechanics pore over wreckage, searching for answers in twisted aluminum and scorched flight logs. Kelly Johnson's ulcer grows, and the Lightning's reputation is both legend and cautionary tale. The war in the Pacific isn't just a test of machines. It's a race to understand the limits of the possible before the next sortie takes off. Spring 1943. Instructors pin a new set of orders to the squadron bulletin board, typed, double-spaced, stamped with the signature of the 5th Air Force's Tactical Office. The headline is blunt: engage only with altitude and speed advantage. Every pilot in the ready room reads it twice. The message is clear: no more dogfighting zeros at treetop level. No more chasing kills in a turning circle. From now on, Lightning crews will climb high, strike fast, and leave before the enemy can answer. Training flights shift overnight. Veteran pilots, some barely older than their students, drill the new doctrine into every sortie. They call it boom and zoom. Attack from above, dive with guns blazing, then use the P-38's power to climb out of reach. The maneuvers are rehearsed until muscle memory takes over. Instructors walk the line between encouragement and warning. If you try to match a zero in a turn, you're already dead. The technical manuals now include pages copied straight from the Akuten Zero test reports. Charts show the A6M's turn rate, stall speed, and the exact airspeed where its controls stiffen. Bulletins highlight the Zero's vulnerability in a dive and its poor roll rate above 250 knots. Pilots memorize the numbers. Never drop below 300 miles per hour in combat. Always attack with the sun behind you. Never give up altitude for a shot. Squadron trainers run mock engagements over the jungle. One flight plays the role of zeros, flying slow, tight circles at 10,000 feet. The P-38s stay above, waiting for the signal to dive. The instructors watch for mistakes. Any lightning that gets sucked into a turning fight is called out in front of the group. There's no shame, only a lesson. Survive by discipline, not bravado. By April, the new tactics are more than theory. Mission briefings begin with altitude assignments and exit plans. Formation leaders stress timing, hit hard, then regroup at a pre-arranged point, never scattered. The squadron's kill-to-loss ratio begins to climb. Reports from the field show fewer lightnings lost to unseen attackers. Pilots return with ammunition left in their belts, but their confidence grows. The doctrine is working. The Lightning, flown with discipline, is finally living up to its promise. April 18th, 1943. 16 P-38G Lightnings lift off from Guadalcanal, each one loaded to the limit with fuel and ammunition. Their flight plan is a straight line to nowhere, 435 miles over open ocean, hugging the waves at 50 feet to stay invisible to Japanese radar. The target is not a ship or an airfield, but a single man. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, Ozao, Isorohku Yamamoto, architect of Pearl Harbor, flying in a G-4M Betty bomber with his staff. Major John Mitchell leads the formation. Every pilot knows the stakes. There's no room for error. The route is mapped to the minute, using dead reckoning and a single battered wristwatch. Each Lightning carries drop tanks for extra range. The plan is simple. Intercept Yamamoto's flight at 9:34 a.m., hit hard, and escape before enemy fighters can react. The Lightnings make landfall over Bougainville right on schedule. At the intercept point, 2 Betty bombers appear, flanked by 6 Zero escorts. Captain Thomas Lanphier and Lieutenant Rex Barber break formation, diving from above. Lanphier lines up on the lead bomber. A burst from his nose guns rips through the fuselage. The Betty spirals down, trailing smoke. Barber closes on the second bomber, firing until flames engulf the wing. Both bombers crash into the jungle below. Yamamoto is dead before his bodyguards reach the wreckage. The Zeros react instantly, swarming the P-38s. In the chaos, Lieutenant Ray Hines' Lightning is hit. He turns out to sea, smoke streaming from his engine, but never makes it home. The rest of the flight races for open water, chased by fuel warnings and Japanese gunfire. Only 1 Lightning is lost. The mission is over in minutes. For the Americans, the operation is a gamble that pays off. The P-38's range, speed, and firepower deliver what no other Allied fighter could: a long-range precision strike deep behind enemy lines. The success electrifies the Allied command. In Tokyo, the loss of Yamamoto stuns the Imperial Navy. The Lightning crews return to base, exhausted but victorious. The mission becomes legend, proof that the right tactics, the right machine, and the right moment can change the course of a war. In October 1942, when the first P-38 Lightnings touched down at Henderson Field, American crews believed their 400-mile-per-hour twin-engine fighters would outclass anything. In the Pacific, Combat records from the Solomon Islands campaign, however, tell a different story. Japanese Zero pilots, led by veterans like Saburo Sakai, Saburo Sakai, repeatedly outmaneuvered the new arrivals, exposing the P-38's vulnerabilities in turning fights and high-speed dives. Squadron reports from the 339th and 39th Fighter Squadrons document these early losses and the rapid shift from overconfidence to urgency. While technical analyses have explained much, such as the P-38's higher wing loading and compressibility limits, some original dogfight details remain absent from surviving mission logs and Japanese archives. Today, military flight training manuals still reference lessons from these encounters, highlighting the impact of tactical adaptation over raw engineering. The shock of those first defeats forced a transformation that changed how American pilots fought, and ultimately, how air combat is taught worldwide.